Hello, and welcome everyone to Sean's little check-in, recording number 6. I hope everyone out there is doing all right on this Wednesday. And I wanted to talk today about manners and civility. I know that that's been a ongoing discussion of concern amongst a lot of people for quite a while now over the past several years. And I'm bringing it up today because I've been thinking in particular that now is a time with this whole pandemic pandemonium and all of how that is affecting us. Now is a real time to a real opportunity to change the whole discourse around how we interact with others, including the whole way of expressing care and concern and compassion for our fellow beings. We have a real opening now to do that more consciously and carefully, given the incredible stress we all find ourselves under. Please and thank you and excuse me and other such caring statements like that are really important to consider doing now under all this duress we find ourselves in. I just want to take a little time here to give an anecdote about that happened for me recently. Where I was just so reminded of the importance of courtesy. Last weekend, I was in line at Trader Joe's, a wonderful market I go to every weekend to get certain food items that I can't get at this other supermarket that I go to for the rest of my groceries, or that Ray and I go to for our groceries during the week. So anyway, there I was in line at Trader Joe's. I was first in line because it is a big market, and these days you have to get in line at the beginning of the day to make sure to get goods before they're all bought off the shelves quickly. And maybe over time that's going to level out as this pandemic goes on, but in the meantime it's still been a pressing concern. So there I was first in line at 8:30 or so before the store opened at 9. And I was there with my purple rubber gloves on, holding the bright red cart to protect myself from, possible virus contagion. And there was music intermittently being streamed out from the store, from Trader Joe's, for us to customers to listen to while waiting. And it was a bracing, chilly wind of early spring here in Massachusetts that all of us were standing in as the line was getting bigger and bigger. And I was periodically dancing and, grooving to the music to just, warm myself up and keep myself entertained and, more connected with something pleasurable by doing that. This woman in her mid-60s or so, she came up to the doorway and she took a cart, but she didn't stand into the line like the rest of us. She stood opposite the door, by the front of the door, starting her own line. And I, matter-of-factly, but politely, as best I could, reminded her and showed her that this is where the line is, where I was standing and everyone in back of me. And she got very irritated and said something like, "I understand that, but I'm not going to go stand in that line." And I didn't say anything further other than "good morning," which she ignored and went and stood where she did. And then a short while later, a store worker came out, and he himself matter-of-factly reminded this woman that the line was over on the other side and to please stand in it for her to then come into the store. And he reminded everyone that only a few people at a time were going to come into the store. So she let loose some F-bombs at this store worker and said she was not going to stand in the line. She had recently had a knee replacement, and that she would let people go past, but she was not going to go all the way down to the line to stand in it. And that she has been a loyal customer every week to Trader Joe's. And I chimed in, I said, well, so are we. And she swore at me as well briefly and quieted down and remained where she was. And eventually we all went into the store a few at a time. But it really left me thinking how manners are just such of importance now. And that is obviously easier said than done when you're very stressed out. Goodness knows what else this woman was going through besides recovering from a knee replacement. Her own personal life could have been very problematic, etc. And, I thought about all of that. And I thought about how I could have been a little more courteous myself, possibly, particularly around not participating and kind of ganging up on her, saying, oh, we're loyal shoppers too. And there I was speaking on behalf of the 20 or 30 people in line with me as well, which is pretty presumptuous. And but I was coming from a bit of an irritated place at that point. So I really thought about how I could practice my manners too, and civility as well, and lead by better example, given that that's what I was wanting from her. So, how do we come back to this basic understanding in applying civility and good manners? Besides, knowing that what that is, and knowing that a lot of us pretty much know how to do that. I certainly was raised to be courteous, and I think a lot of people watching could say the same. And what's crossed my mind around that, as I was thinking earlier before making this recording today, is what I talked about yesterday is a helpful way to get to that. By being mindful, if you practice some kind of mindfulness of any sort at all, where you just come back into your center and get some space from whatever strong, extreme feelings you're having, any irritation and what have you happen to be in, where you just focus on your breath and come back to here and now in a bigger perspective than whatever it is in the moment that's bothering you. And there are so many ways to do that. And I will, at a later recording, show an example of a mindfulness exercise that's easy to do, that many people watching this have probably done before. But since a friend of mine has requested I show an example of mindfulness, I will do that in a later video. But my point here is that by practicing some mindfulness, it's a way to get back more readily to that place of inner calm, that natural place of compassion, that natural place of connectedness that we have with not only ourselves, but other human beings. That is a helpful way to get back to then the knowledge we have of courtesy towards our fellow human beings. That is a way to do that, which these days is really so important because of, again, the stress we all find ourselves in. A refrain statement I know I have said already a number of times in some earlier recordings is, we're all in this together. And that really is so much the case. This pandemic is like a fine mist that permeates the air everywhere. And for all of us who breathe and have skin, we feel that. So therefore, it is from there that we can practice this compassion on ourselves and on others around us, that really we are going through all of this difficulty together, even if it's in some different ways as well as some same ways and similar ways. And why not be compassionate with each other about that? and show courtesy. And maybe then return, therefore, to being a well-mannered society like we used to be more. Granted, we've never been a perfect society of perfect decorum, and I'm not talking about that. But I do think that we can return to being a more civilized, caring society. And right now, we're in a big discourse around that, both on the federal political level and on this interpersonal level. So that said, I am wishing you all well, and look forward to seeing you this way more, and take care.